Hello there, my Nerdy-Nawg-Dawgs. I would like to recap our lesson from today. Today we were talking about long division, and we started the day with this question. A DVD library has a collection of 1,209 discs for learning language. If there are equal number of discs for learning English, Spanish, and French, then how many discs are there for each language? So my first question for you guys was, how do we get started in this? If we don't know long division, how do we solve for this? And what I want you guys to remember is that multiplication and division are related, right? That's my brain-based symbol. Help you connect. They're related. We can use one to solve the other. We learned this in chapter 2. So how do we go about doing that? Well, friends, let me show you a little bit. So if we had 1,209 DVDs, right? I want you to visualize on a bookshelf. There's all these DVDs. Oh my gosh, look at them. There's 1,209. Now we know this is division because some of them are in English, some are in Spanish, some are in French. And they said it was an even amount of videos. So right off the bat, we know we need to divide this amount into 3 sections. How do we do that if we don't know long division? Well, we start with what we do know. We know that we're dividing it into 3 groups, right? And that whole number. So we can even think of this as a number bond. And we're dividing by 3, and that'll give us the answer over here, right? Yes, it will. We also know that then I could multiply this number by that number, and it'll get me up to 1,209. So then I kind of go, well, what do I know about multiplying something by 3 to get close to 1,209? And so I'm going to go with easy math stuff that I know. And I know that 3 times, say, 300, it's math I know in my head already. With my zero math trick, 3 times 3 is 9, 2 zeros. So that's 900. That's not quite up to 1,209. However, numbers, things are starting to kind of stand out. I know something about 12 and 3 and a connection that they have. And I know that 3 is a factor of 12, or that 12 is a multiple of 3. So then I go back to my factors and multiples, and there goes my lights, of course, right in the middle of a math lesson. Here we go. And I can say, well, I know that 3 times 4 gives me 12. So if I'm talking about 1,200 or 1,209, that gets me really close. So it's not actually 4, because that only gets me to 12, but 3 times 400 will give me 1,200 or 1,200, another way to say that, right? Oh, so that gets me really close. So if I'm looking at that, I only have 9 more to get me to my key number. So I know that 3 times 400 I can think of as there's going to be 400 French videos, 400 Spanish videos, and 400 English videos. And now all I have left is that 9. Well, I know that 9 divided by 3 equals 3, which would mean that there are 3 parts, or 3 with 3 in it. Therefore, I can add 3 here, add 3 there, add 3 there. And so that would be 1,200 or 1,200 plus 369. Now I've made it to my key number. So again, we take what we know until we know the long division algorithm, and we can still solve for things. Just piece it apart. One way to check this would be to say, there's going to be 403 in each of the groups. So that gets rid of my question mark. And then to check for this, I could then do multiplication. So 403 times 3, meaning that there's this amount in the 3 groups, English, Spanish, and French. And then if I do the math on that, 0, 12, that gets me up to 1,209. Okay, so that's how to solve for that sort of problem. But let's get back to Let's get back to long division. This is where I want to go next. And this is where you guys are going to sit for a little while. There we go. Let's get to the right screen. Okay, here we go. Finally, does McDonald's sell burgers? Why, yes, Miss Nawg-Dave, they do. Can you show us? Yeah, of course, I'll show you. What does that stand for? I like to use that acronym to help us remember the steps for long division. And the steps for long division are always the same. Does McDonald's sell burgers? Or divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. So let's look at the steps, because this is an algorithm. An algorithm is a math trick, meaning we can't always see why it works, but it works if you follow the steps. This is the most efficient way for solving for division, okay? So we will learn other ways. Partial quotients actually explains what it is we're doing with division. But this algorithm is the most efficient, and that is why we need to leave 4th grade having mastered this. So let's see if we can make out the steps. And our first step says to divide. What am I dividing? Well, this is my dividend here. When it's under the division bracket, it's called my dividend. This is the number being divided. What is it divided by? The divisor. In this case, 8 is the divisor. My answer will go up on top of the bracket. Now, each of these numbers in the dividend needs to be accounted for, meaning you must have an answer up above it, even if the answer is 0. We'll talk about that. Let's get started. Our first step, divide. What is being divided? Well, the first digit within the dividend. So 9 is being divided by 8. 8 is the divisor. So my question to ask is, can 9 be divided by 8? Or here's another way to think of it. Can 8 fit into 9? If so, how many times? The answer is yes. 8 will fit into 9 one time, meaning it can be divided into 9. So that is 9 divided by 8 will be divided one time. Guess what? There would be 1 left over, right? Because the difference between 8 and 9 is 1. So my next step would be multiply. What am I multiplying? Well, I actually have to do this step, the multiplication, in my head already to know if this number is divisible by the divisor. So I've already done it. It's just a technicality for this formula to make it work. So now I multiply. What am I multiplying? I'm multiplying my answer by the divisor. So 1 times 8 equals 8. And I'm going to write that underneath the number that I'm dividing, which is 9, right? What's my next step? My next step is to subtract. So now I'm subtracting my answer from the dividend that I'm dividing into. A lot of D words there, right? 9 minus 8 equals 1. Okay. So then I have to kind of start over, and I go back and I say, well, can 8 divide into 1, or can it fit into 1? Is 1 divisible by 8? No, it can't fit into 8. That would be like saying I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 little jewels. Can 8 of those divide into 1? No, 1 cannot be divided into 8 parts unless I go to fractional units. So that does not even work. However, to make this algorithm work, I can go to my next step, which I haven't done yet, and that would be bring down. What can I bring down? As long as there's still another number in the dividend to be devised, to be divided, you can bring that down. So the next digit comes down. I cannot go forward and bring down another number until I account for this one and have an answer up above. So now my question is, instead of dividing into 1, I can say, well, can 17 be divided by 8? And the answer to that is yes. 8 will fit into 17 2 times. Okay? 2 times 8, that's our next step, gives me 16. And now I subtract 17 minus 16. That means there is 1 left over. Okay? Now I go back to the beginning. Can 1 be divided by 8? No, it cannot. So I have another number in my dividend. I can bring that down, and that would be 2. Now I ask again, can 12 be divided by 8? Will 8 fit into 12? Yeah, it will, one time. Okay, now I go to multiplication. 1 times 8 equals 8. Now I go to subtraction. 12 minus 8 gives me 4 left over. Then I would go to bring down, but there's nothing left in the dividend, so I have nothing to bring down. 8 cannot fit into 4. 4 is not divisible by 8. So that means that this is left over. When I have nothing left in the dividend to bring down, and I cannot divide that number into what's left over, it's just left over. We would call that a remainder, and it would be listed up at the top with your answer as remainder 4. What does that mean? It means that there is 4 left over out of 8 total. So that would be a fractional unit, not a whole amount, right? Because a whole amount would be 8 out of 8. So it is left over as remainder 4. Let's see if we can do one more problem a little bit faster and follow those steps. Okay, so today in class, we did this problem. 432 divided by 4. Here's my dividend. What's being divided? It's being divided by 4. So my first step, divide. Can 4 fit into 4? Or can 4 be divided by 4? Yeah, one time. Now I do multiplication. 1 times 4 gives me 4. Now I subtract. 4 minus 4 gives me 0. Oh, okay. Now I still have another digit in my dividend. I know that 4 cannot go into 0. Therefore, I can bring down the next digit in my dividend. Now, something to remember, I have to put an answer up here. I cannot bring down the 2 until I've answered for this digit in the dividend. Now I'm dividing by 3, or dividing into 3, right? Can 3 be divided by 4? No, 3 is smaller than 4. 4 will not fit into 3. So I have to answer that 0. 4 cannot divide into 3, or 3 cannot be divided by 4. So my answer is 0. It doesn't mean I'm done with my problem, because I still have another digit in my dividend, which can be brought down. Now I can answer for 32. Can 4 fit into 32? And the answer to that is yeah. Yeah, I know my multiples. I know, and this is where you can skip right down to that number. I know that 8 times 4 is 32. Now I subtract. 32 minus 32 gives me 0. There's nothing left to bring down. So this is my final answer. Okay? An algorithm works because you follow the steps. It's a math trick, but it is the most efficient way. So just keep practicing. Okay, Nerdy-Nawg-Dawgs. See you soon.